K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com. K98talk.com, a leader in internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98talk.com. K98talk.com, a leader in internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98talk.com.
Happy Tuesday, folks. This is Rick Robinson. I'm the host of America Off the Rails. It's been quite some time since I've been with you guys, at least live on this particular show. If you missed it, Bryce and I did do a little bit of a recap of the Southern Republican Leadership Conference 2015 this Saturday, which also played as a replay earlier today. That will be the majority of what we talk about on this show as well. Now, I'm not going to go as far into it as I know Grouchy's going to, but I did want to mention at least who won the straw poll and then give you a little indication as to why I think that happened. But, of course, he's going to go even more into depth on that tomorrow, so I don't want to steal his thunder. But anyway, I mean, it's not like any of you that are paying attention that read the posts that we put out on the website and everywhere else already don't know. Dr. Ben Carson won the straw poll. Because of that, I've actually reached out to his campaign and been contacted back via email. I've been advised that I'll be contacted shortly to see if there's any way that we can schedule an interview, whether that be live or pre-recorded, so that we can discuss the recent straw poll results. I also want to try to get him to clarify a little bit on his 2A stances. So anybody who has any questions for Mr. Carson, Dr. Carson, should I get the opportunity to interview him, feel free to shoot me those via Twitter or my email. And of course, if given the opportunity, I will do my best to try to ask your questions, which is what we intended to do at the Southern Republican Leadership Conference. But I didn't realize what a madhouse those type of conventions were. I have to admit, that was my first one. I hadn't dealt with anything like that before, and it was crazy. Now, I will tell you that my personal opinion as to probably why Carson managed to pull off such a decisive victory on the straw poll was he had probably one of the best organized group movements there. Not saying anything bad about them. There were a couple of issues that I think should have been addressed, like maybe having the straw poll folks ask their questions further away from the groups that were hounding you about, hey, vote for our guy here, here's a sticker. But, you know, that's not their fault. But anyway, I'm going to let Grouchy go in a little bit more into that. I just wanted to let you know that because of those results, I have reached out to the Carson camp and have been contacted back and been advised that my information and my request for an interview has been forwarded along. So as that continues, I will definitely let you know should we be lucky enough to be able to actually interview him. And again, if you have any questions for him, make sure you hit me up at either at @double_R_OKC, or you can hit me up at Ricky@thesparkradionetwork.com. Both of those methods work. You can also send me a friend's request on Facebook. You know, I don't bite. I only nibble upon requests, but only in certain occasions. So you can send me a friend request there. We can chat, we can talk, we can hang out. It'll be fun. But anyway, so without further ado, and again pointing out that Carson's camp won the straw poll, I'm still waiting to see if we can get to interview him about that. And yeah, I'm going to say that a lot lately, just in case they happen to tune in, because it is important to me to get a chance to be able to talk to the candidates. And at this point, this show isn't actually now considered nationally syndicated and available in several different areas and several different markets. So I will be trying to use that, what little clout I am starting to build, to try to see if I can get some of you, the listeners' questions answered as well. Now, that being said, like I said, we had lots of good interviews. If you didn't get a chance to hear the Finding Common Ground episode, you actually missed out on a great interview. However, you don't have to listen to the whole show to hear the interview. It was done by my good friend Grouchy, who actually hung out with me for the entire conference. Actually, he was there for a day that even I wasn't able to attend because of my son's graduation. But he actually drove all the way up from Alabama to hang out with me. It was the first time we'd ever met in person, and it was awesome. He did actually score what I consider for us the get of the conference. He actually got to sit down and interview Ambassador John Bolton. That interview has now been passed on to CNN, so you can check it out at icnn.com. You can also find it on our SoundCloud channel at the Spark Radio Network, on SoundCloud. You can also find it, again, inside the Finding Common Ground episode that was aired originally on Saturday and actually replayed again today, because it really was that good of an interview. And I did what I did on purpose, because he did the legwork, he got it done, he made the contact, they responded to him, and I wanted to make sure that he got the chance to do the interview. And it did exactly what I wanted it to do. It basically created a star. If you haven't listened to the interview yet, you definitely need to. He was right on point, right on top of it. Even managed to get in a question or two from his Twitter followers. Colonel Obvious was the one that I remember. There may have actually been another one in there as well. I don't remember for sure. But it did exactly what I wanted it to do. It put Grouchy on a national stage, which is where he deserves to be. So if you have not heard that interview yet, you definitely need to tune in. Now, I myself, because it was my home state, and that's where the convention was, anytime we had the opportunity, I did actually sit down and partake or participate in more local area interviews. I do have a couple of those, or at least one of them. Actually, I have more than one, but one we'll be talking about today, and that is Mr. Mark Costello, the State Labor Commissioner for Oklahoma. He actually sat down with me for about 15 minutes and actually kind of gave me his take on who he wants to see run for president and who he hopes is going to win. And, gave me his take on how it feels to have a conference that was as important as this one in our home state. So I'm going to go ahead and cue that up now, again, and then we'll talk about what he says here in just a moment. I'm joined this afternoon by Mr. Mark Costello. He's going to do a little bit of a sit-down with us. Good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Well, Rick, I am doing great. It's a great day in Oklahoma, particularly for the Republican Party.
Yeah, I have to admit, this has been a rather energizing event. I actually got to sit in a little bit on some of the general session earlier today, which I didn't get a chance to do yesterday because having never done anything like this before, it was a bit of an overwhelming experience at first. So, but yeah.
Well, I tell you what, it makes me understand what it's like to live in Iowa or New Hampshire or South Carolina. I mean, to have attention given to us by these eminent presidential candidates is good stuff. It's really good because most likely the next president of the United States has walked through these doors in the last few days.
I hope so. Otherwise, it might have been his wife.
Well, surely we're not going to go there. I mean, but no, I mean, look, there's a lot of great candidates that people are saying it's the clown car at the circus. All I can say is our bench is deep, the talent pool is deep, but I have a favorite in the race, and that's Governor Scott Walker.
Oh, man, after Grouchy's heart over here, that's his guy too so far. And I have to admit, he is. I don't really have a favorite at the moment, but if he were to declare, he would probably be my favorite. Right now, he's not because he hasn't made his intentions clear.
Well,
I want commitment, man.
Well, look, he's waiting. He's doing his job as governor. The legislature is still in session, but there is no doubt that he is running for president, and there is no doubt with his performance in Wisconsin in the most important non-presidential election thus far this century, where the battle royale between public sector unions, organized labor that wished to defeat him, that the taxpayers of Wisconsin. One, he cured a $3.5 billion deficit. He did not have to lay people off. He was able to put more money into the paychecks of teachers merely by no longer requiring them to be members of a union that they chose not to be and pay dues that were only used for political purposes. Scott Walker is a hero of the taxpayers of this country.
Well, yeah, like I said, he would probably be my guy. I don't know. Until he actually officially declares, I'm really not going to make a pick, but if he does declare, he will likely be my guy because of everybody that's really running right now. He stands for pretty much everything I'm looking for.
Well, what do you hear, Rick? I mean, you've been talking to a lot of people. You've talked to your colleagues here. He looks like a smart fella.
I am under no illusions that he will probably announce at some point. And actually, we discussed this yesterday when we were doing live broadcasts, and he did point out that what he thinks that Walker not declaring right now is actually smart because any fundraising that he does right now, he doesn't necessarily have to fall into certain guidelines.
In speaking with Governor Walker yesterday, and by the way, in 2012, in the recall election, when the left, the Democrat Party, the Union, spent over $100 million attempting to defeat him, I went up to Wisconsin and I worked some victory centers for him. And that, once again, was the battle of the century. But I talked to one state senator, Senator Darling, that the Union spent $7 million. Now, to put that in perspective, that's more than the Republicans and the Democrats in the primary and the general election spend in Oklahoma for the gubernatorial race. So they spent $7 million for one state Senate race because they understood how important it was. And those of us who are conservative understand that if we had lost that battle in Wisconsin, then the rest of the nation would be marching towards Detroit. And I would have to say that Detroit, which was the richest city in the Western world in 1950, and today has an adult illiteracy of 47%, if we want to go towards that type of degradation, then we should not support candidates like Governor Walker, who understand that there's a time to lead, there's a time to have a backbone, and there's a time also to bring along, for the better good of the people of Wisconsin, implement reforms that are necessary.
Well, yeah, and I agree with everything that you just said. It's interesting that you bring up Detroit because for the longest time, Detroit was the model that the liberal would always run to about how things should be run. And now you look at it several decades later, and it looks like it's now part of a third world country.
It is. Well, interesting you should mention that, Rick, because the adult illiteracy of 47% in Detroit is on par with the Central African Republic, which also has 47% adult illiteracy. The difference, the Central African Republic was ruled for decades by a dictator who happened to be a cannibal, whereas Detroit has merely been ruled by the Democrat Party for 60 years. Same outcome. Yeah, they've turned Detroit from the richest city in the world to a complete and total basket case. And dare I say, that is the fruit of socialism.
Well, yeah, and I completely agree. I mean,
statism as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite Thatcher quotes was, "What do you do when you run out of other people's money?"
Yeah, that's right. That's the definition of socialism.
And that's exactly what happened in Detroit. They ran out of everybody else's money.
Well, some people say, well, Detroit's a special circumstance. Well, they've run out of toilet paper in Venezuela. How's that socialism working? I don't know about you, but as a father of 5 kids, that could be a cause for revolution in itself.
I have 4 of my own, and
you can see. Come on. Here's the point.
That was a picture I really didn't need.
No, you probably didn't. But let me tell you a story. We're all part of our life experience. Mine has been founding businesses that have gone international. Presently, the last business I founded in 2009 is now selling products in 60 different countries around the world. But in the late 70s, I ran into a Roman Catholic bishop from one of the largest Polish cities in the world, Chicago. Bishop Wojtyla, who happened to be the first cousin of Pope John Paul II, when I came to visit him in Chicago, said, when Poles come from the Soviet bloc countries, come from Poland, and come to Chicago for the first time, one of their first visits is to a grocery store. And there they see 30 different types of peanut butter, 40 different types of bread. They see aisles of toilet paper. And they turn to their cousins and they say, this is a Potemkin village. This is a show store to fool us rubes coming from a communist country. And their cousins say, no, this is how America is. This is the fruit of free people and a free market, choice and selection. In Poland, they had chronic toilet paper shortages, one type of bread, one type of peanut butter. And they were gobsmacked. They couldn't get over it. And similarly, when it comes to government control, we understand intuitively we don't want them building our cars, but yet we have them running our schools. And the teachers union, whether it be in Baltimore or Detroit, ends up with a disastrous result for the people they're supposed to be serving.
Yeah, no argument from me. I've said before, live on the air multiple times, that the states were originally intended to be independent, separate laboratories. I mean, another definition of a state is a country. So the idea of a regular, just national agency overseeing the education for an entire country, what works in one state is not going to work in another. I understand maybe setting some minimum guidelines, but to not allow them to capitalize in certain areas on certain forms of education make no sense to me.
Well, let me give you an example. Coming from the private sector, you come into the public sector and you realize it's not the private sector. There's no profit motive. But we do have a best practice motive. And let me give you an example. When I came into office, Oklahoma was paying $2.52 for workers' comp coverage that only cost $1 in Arkansas. We were paying $2.52. Most of us would cross rush hour traffic to save a few pennies. This was a huge difference. I went and checked it out in Arkansas, found out that 25 years ago they had amongst the worst in the country in Arkansas, but Governor Jim Guy Tucker and the Democrats fixed it. The result, that was, by the way, before Governor Jim Guy Tucker went to jail for corruption. So a corrupt governor and the Democrats could fix a system that became the exemplar in the country. So it's our obligation to look at that system, bring it to Arkansas. We did so 2 years ago. And the same is true of corrections. The same is true of the reform of bureaucracy. The two words is best practices. Sans a profit motive, that's the most we can hope for, but there's much more we can do in Oklahoma.
So how much longer are you in the office you hold currently?
I will be through 2018.
Plan on running for anything else after that? Because you might have my vote.
Well, I've sometimes, when people ask me that question, to be a smarty, I'll say, well, do Pavlovian dogs salivate?
Only when the bell rings.
Yeah. So, and politicians, when that bell rings every election cycle, they just, there's this compulsion. They just think people need them. Look, the world will get by just fine without any of us. Politics is ephemeral. It's like the mist. It goes away. But at the same time, I didn't take a sabbatical from viable businesses that are doing actually better without me, as it turns out. I didn't take a sabbatical from businesses to stand for public office so I can be a night watchman in the graveyard of the welfare state. I actually chose public service because I do believe that Oklahoma is a great state, and the people are greater than the political class that we have that is in office, and we can do better, and like Scott Walker, with leadership, we will do better.
It's interesting that you mentioned political class, because they really have become their own separate class apart from general society at this point, in my opinion.
Well, here's an interesting
point, at least the DC
Let me tell you a story, Rick. You're so young, but do you know who George McGovern was?
Yes, I know.
Okay. You have to have a little bit of girth and gray to remember George McGovern. This is a good story. Okay.
Not much gray, lots of girth.
When he ran, of course, for president, got his backside beat off in 1972. However, in 1980, after he was run out of the Senate in the Reagan Revolution, he went out and started a small boutique hotel in Connecticut with a partner, which, by the way, is always a bad idea in business to have a partner. But it's like conjugal relations without, it's at any rate. I won't even go there. But so he goes off and starts his hotel, and for the first time in his life, he has nanny state regulators from the city, the county, the state. He has cranky employees, competition, bankers. He has workers' comp fraud, lawsuits, and eventually he goes broke. So George McGovern in 1992 wrote a column, an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, in which he said, if I had had that life experience of knowing what a lawmaker the effect a lawmaker has on a business person. If I'd had that life experience before I was a United States Senator, I would have made a finer United States Senator. If I'd been elected President of the United States in 1972, I would have made a finer president. To your point, Rick, we have and oftentimes reward people because of their personality. We reward them because of their name ID. Fair enough. But we need to look at what forms them in their life. And that makes a difference. And whether they're of the political class, I don't know how to define it other than I would rather have George McGovern after he had failed in business than before.
You know, I understand that as well, and I think that's been one of everybody's major concerns with Obama now that he's come to light a lot more, that the fact that really the whole time everybody's been trying, that anybody that knew anything about him was trying to say, look, nobody knows who this guy is, he's never really accomplished anything, and now he's running the country. I would rather have somebody in that position that is, if nothing else, failed at running a business than have been a community organizer.
The fact that less than 10% of his administration has ever had any real employment in the private sector, which, by the way, the previous low bar on that was set under the Carter administration at 30%, but less than 10% is one thing, but the other 90% are an open hostility to the private sector. They think if somehow you've been successful in the private sector, it's ill-gotten gains.
You didn't build that.
You didn't build that, abso-doggone-lutely. So, yes, we have a challenge in Washington. We have a cultural challenge. We have an economic challenge. But it's not going to cure itself unless good people stand for office and can win the heart and the mind of the voters and say, no more, we can no longer continue to do the insane things that got us here.
And I completely agree. All right, so I don't know how much you were planning on hanging around, but we're about the 15-minute mark. Why don't you go ahead and let everybody know who you are one more time, what it is that you're doing?
I am the elected Labor Commissioner of the state of Oklahoma. I'm Mark Costello, a recovering businessman, passionate about public office, public policy. Oklahoma is a great state. We can do more and better in the future, but we have to make the right selections.
I completely agree. It was a pleasure, sir.
Thank you, Rick.
All right, so that was Mr. Mark Costello, the Oklahoma Labor Commissioner, who actually sat down for about a 15-minute interview with me during the Southern Republican Leadership Conference. And as you can see, he made no bones about it. Scott Walker is his guy. He can't wait until he declares. And I have to admit, if Walker would declare, I would probably be backing him as well. That doesn't mean that I don't still want to talk to the other candidates, and I'm not going to make a decision until the last minute. But Walker, so far, I like what he's done in his home state. I like his experience level, so I really would like to get a chance to maybe speak to him as well at some point if he actually does declare. For those of you who may be looking for us in our usual places, I did want to give you a bit of an update. Right now, if you're listening to me, about the only place you're going to find us right now is going to be either on Spreaker or on iHeart. I just got notified that our website is undergoing some maintenance. Should be back up momentarily for those of you who are looking for it and maybe stumbling across this broadcast in another way. But anyway, so at this point, it is about time for us to go ahead and, I guess not quite yet. We are getting pretty close to break, but not quite there. All right, so we'll wait a couple minutes, then go ahead and take the break. But I wanted to point out a couple of things that I thought were interesting. First of all, Mr. Costello is actually very, very passionate. As you could hear, the pounding on the table, that wasn't me, that was him. Anytime he really got going, he couldn't help it. He started pounding on the table. And I think it's because he's feeling a lot of the same way that a lot of us are, and it's he doesn't recognize his country anymore. I don't know about any of you, but most of the time, every morning when I get up, the first thing I do is turn on the news if it's not been on already. And I start hearing stories that make me realize that it seems like every day I slide more and more into the twilight zone. That's the one thing that this conference kind of reminded me of again, is that all of this was started for a reason, and we're going to stick with that particular reason. I didn't start this to make money. I'm hoping at some point to be able to do that, but that's not what I started it for. I started it to reach people, to hopefully wake people up, and in some small way to be able to make a difference. I say small way, but along the way, we've actually managed to connect with like-minded people. We're now cross-promoting through a few different networks. Some of the shows are going to start being available soon on one of those networks. unfortunately for the moment the name escapes me. Leading Edge Radio Network, that's what it was. Okay. And then, of course, this show is available on iHeart. It's also available on Stitcher. So, I mean, we are getting our message out there. And a lot of that is thanks to you guys who tune in every day, because otherwise we probably wouldn't keep doing what we do if it wasn't for the fact that we have a pretty solid listener base. Now, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you this particular interview, because he says some things that are pertinent at the national level, even though it is the Oklahoma Labor Commissioner. The simple fact of the matter is we are in trouble. This administration is the most anti-small business administration I think I've ever seen in my lifetime. And the simple fact of the matter is, if you think it's bad for the average American, I mean, let's think about something for just a second. The average American, if you were actually to read through the laws that are currently on the books, you would likely commit anywhere from 3 to 5 felonies a day and have no idea that you'd done it. Think about that same bureaucracy, the same BS, the same red tape on steroids that is what has become the business laws within the national level. It's crazy, the things that they make businesses do now to jump through hoops, the things that they have to do, the extra things that the Obamacare Act has added. Speaking of which, that will be a topic that JD and Stacy will be talking about this evening, so I figured it'd be a good time to bring them up as well. Of course, they will be on at, on Tuesdays. It is 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 Central. Then, of course, as soon as this show ends, for the moment, we will have a replay of the Liz Harrison radio show. Now, I did just get confirmation that another host will likely be joining us soon. We'll be finalizing paperwork there. If he does wind up coming over, then that he will actually assume the Tuesday night at 7 role. So at this point, we are starting to fill up with more and more live content. Again, that's thanks to every single one of you. I also have a really big announcement, but I promised I wouldn't make it yet, so I can't say anything else. But I promise when I'm able to tell you, you're going to love it. Alright, so at this point, it is about time for us to go ahead and take a really quick break. We'll be right back here in just a couple seconds with America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. Alright, so again, as I was saying just a moment ago, it is time for us to go ahead and take a really quick break. We'll be right back after these messages. You guys have a great rest of your day, and don't forget, don't go anywhere. I'm not quite done yet. Don't know why I said that. It's been one of those nights, folks. We'll be right back.
K98Talk.com, a leader in internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98Talk.com.
This is JD.
And this is Stacy.
Join us Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern for Game On. Remember,
Lock up the children and the old folks.
Game On, the home of liberty-conservative conservatism.
Where no one is safe and no one is spared. Not even the hosts.
Oh, that was supposed to be a spin cycle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We love you anyway. Right round, baby.
Self-monitoring
right
Ebola
anyway.
radio strikes again.
Anyway.
Anybody see the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? For God's sake, I need an antidote. Just do your rant. Let's pop out of the segment.
Has to do with
Find us on Twitter at JD and Stacy.
You're listening to K98Talk.com.
This is Misty, owner of Wax It Studio in Edmond, Oklahoma, and I'm here to talk to you about a skincare product called Theramedics. Theramedics has a wonderful line of products from anti-aging to hyperpigmentations all the way to acne. In fact, everyone at some point in our life is affected by acne. Acne can cause a great deal of embarrassment and anxiety, and in order to prevent and help other people, I have tapped into this wonderful product called Theramedics. Visit my website at www.prettyskindeep.com. Again, that's www.prettyskindeep.com.
All right, folks, we're back. We're live. This is America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. We're continuing the discussion about the Southern Republican Leadership Conference that just ended this past Saturday. Again, Dr. Ben Carson was the straw poll winner, but I'll let Grouchy go into more specifics about that with you tomorrow, about why we both kind of feel that happened. Now, I do have one last interview I want to go ahead and play for this particular show, and this one actually is a little bit more at the national level. This is Mr. Hang on a second. I lost my train of thought because my screen went dark. Nice. Mr. Richard Engel. He is the author of a book called The Last American President, and not the one, he's not the Richard Engel from NBC, but he actually is a columnist. I'll let him explain that a little bit more here in his interview, because he actually does go into that a little bit. This one is not nearly as long as the other one. It only runs for about 7 minutes, but we're going to go ahead and cue that up now. So that we can go ahead and let you guys, again, get a little bit of the flavor of the conference. Now, I did leave this one a little more unedited than the last one, so that you'll hear a couple of tinny things here and there, but I kind of wanted to leave more of the background noise in place for this one, just to give you the overall feel of the noise level and the buzz at the conference. So, without further ado, this is Mr. Richard Engel, who sat down with me for an interview about his new book, The Last American President.
Well, excellent. I'm Richard Engel. I'm author of The Last American President, a new novel that's come out about 3 months ago.
Awesome. So, Last American President. So, just from the title, I'm taking it that things don't go well for the country in the book.
George W. Bush, the last American president.
You know, I've had a lot of people say that must be George W. Bush because they're not sure the one we have now is American. But no, it's actually about the final American president, the very last one, and it is set in our, unfortunately, not too distant future. It's a cautionary tale designed to help us prevent the very scenario, the premise that it's set on.
Very good.
So why don't you go ahead and kind of outline that particular tale, give us a general idea. I mean, I don't want to have you give away too much because, you know, you want them to buy the book, but, you know, we want to give them enough to maybe want them to pick it up. So.
We certainly do want them to buy the book, and it's available here at the Southern Republican Leadership Conference. It's available at www.lastamericanpresident.com. Paperback, hardcover, all the various ebook versions, barnesandnoble.com, Amazon, etc., local bookstores as well. But the story, it very much is a character-driven story of the man who becomes the final American president. It has humor, has romance, has personal tragedies. You'll laugh, you'll cry. Of course, betrayal, political intrigue, and all set against the backdrop of the dissolution of the United States of America.
Wow. Awesome. So I'm really sad that I didn't have a chance to start reading that very much last night, and I will probably not be able to put it down until I'm done with it once we're through with this conference. So thank you very much for the copy, by the way.
Of course.
All right.
So, Richard, also with the new book, this is obviously not your first book.
This is actually my first book. I've been writing for about 15 years, mostly columns, articles, including for the Wall Street Journal. But this is the first effort at literature, at writing a novel, and it's gone very well. They said in our first month we sold more copies than most authors do in their lifetime in just 1 month. Not on the bestseller list yet, but hopefully this radio station will help.
We'll definitely do what we can. Speaking of which, you ever write anything else or you want to come back on anytime, you're always more than welcome. I believe I gave you my card yesterday. If not, it's right there.
Well, I appreciate that much. I am working on the second novel, which is actually intended to be a prequel to this one, Escape to Manitoba. And I think that it's a little more action-oriented. This is political fiction. That's a little more action-oriented, and then there's intended to be a sequel as well. So it is intended as a trilogy. I think people will enjoy, they enjoy novels, they enjoy fiction. The difference between fiction and real life is fiction has to make sense.
How quite true, yeah. I like that. I like that a lot.
All right, so just to recap with everybody, what's the name of the book one more time, and where can they find it?
The Last American President. Easiest place to find it is at www.lastamericanpresident.com. You can find out a lot about the story there. I also like to speak to civic and political groups. I believe in free speech, and I give them. Great. So if you have a desire to have me come speak to your group, at no charge, of course, I will try to sell my books. But I speak on the subject of can the American empire survive? I deal with a lot of information regarding the national debt, trying to bring it home a little bit. It's $18 trillion. It's more than doubled in this one administration alone, doubled just in a few administrations prior to that. It's a looming thing, and I like to present some information, ways to color it, ways to bring it home so people can understand it better. And that doesn't even deal with the unfunded liabilities, which are between $123 and $203 trillion. You know, the thing that bothers me about that most is the experts can't agree on the unfunded liabilities in a range between $123 and $203 trillion. That's too wide of a range. Yeah. We have no idea how much we owe the people we owe. And those unfunded liabilities are, you know, Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, right. Veterans benefits. I mean, they deserve, you know, what they're owed. Absolutely. And of course, you know, federal retirement benefits as well. So, you know, a lot of things like that are in that. And that is an impending crisis that we must deal with. It's that Wile E. Coyote moment, you know, on the cartoon Saturday morning that we watch where they're racing across the desert and they go past the cliff edge. You know, you never know if you're past the point of no return until you're past the point of no return.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and sadly, unlike the cartoons, when we go off that cliff, we're not going to have 30 seconds to wait and watch and see if they can get back over.
Hold up a sign that says help. Richard, on social media, where can we find you?
I am on Twitter as well as Richard Engel, author speaker on Facebook. I probably am a lot more active on Facebook, but I did do a couple of Twitter posts today.
Great. And your Twitter handle is?
I don't remember.
You don't remember. Folks, search for Richard Engel on Twitter. You'll find him.
E-N-G-L-E.
Yeah, you will find him. It's E-N-G-L-E. You will find him out there. And Richard, I had no idea you spoke on other topics such as that, and I would love to have you on my show in the future.
Well, excellent. I've been involved in politics for a little over 30 years, both in elective public office as well as mostly behind the scenes, behind the curtain, as it were, of the party. I was the last person to be able to get a minority report on the floor of a national political convention, either party, since Ronald Reagan did it in 1976. They really create a process to make that difficult. Fantastic. So I've been behind that curtain. I know what happens back there that most people don't.
Well, I've actually been compiling bits of data here and there. I intend to do a future show on our deficit and unfunded liabilities. So this is something I'm very interested in and would love to have you come on and speak.
Well, I would be glad to do so.
I appreciate that.
All right. So any last thoughts for the listeners?
Well, I certainly hope they'll buy The Last American President, get some information about it, and enjoy it.
All right, sir. Well, thank you very much for your time today. I just want to say thanks again for stopping by. I do hope maybe we can help you with those book sales. And again, I think we would both be interested in interviewing you about some of the other things that you have going on. I do have your card. You gave me one yesterday, so I'll make sure unless you've got another one, I'll make sure.
Of course, I always have another one.
Well, you know, you can see I've got some right there on the table, and I got like a million more down here, so I fully understand. All right, so thank you again for your time, sir.
Thank you kindly. Appreciate it, Rick. G.
Rich, thank you.
Great day.
All right, so that was Mr. Richard Engel, author of The Last American President. Sorry, I didn't realize how low the audio quality was on that, so I will actually get that pushed out to our SoundCloud page later after I fix it for anybody who wants to just hear the interview. But I have actually had a moment to start picking up the book. I do highly recommend checking it out. It is a very interesting read so far, and it does actually outline the story of our last American president. And as he said, he's now working on a prequel, and then at some point there will actually be a sequel. So this could actually be 3 entertaining and thrilling reads, and I would highly recommend not only reading them, but possibly getting to know Mr. Engel as well, using the social media tools that you have available. Again, if you are like-minded and have a group of some sort, feel free to reach out to him. Apparently, he does offer free speaking engagements as long as you allow him the ability to sell his books. So I definitely would recommend doing that as well. And as G and I both said, I don't know how well you could hear that last bit, but we do plan on keeping the contact up with Mr. Engel and having him actually come on a few episodes upcoming to discuss some of the other things that he does seem rather knowledgeable about, up to and including our deficit. So look forward to those shows in the future if you are a regular listener, and if not, make sure you stay tuned, because like I said, at this point, Talk is adding new content every day. Nice. Bear with me for just one moment. I love when things go just a little bit crazy on you. Hopefully I didn't lose everybody here. Okay, so now I can actually hear myself again. That was a little creepy. All of a sudden, my headphones completely cut out. All right, so far today, we've talked about the fact that Ben Carson won the straw poll. Yeah, I'll reserve judgment until I see whether or not his staff is going to allow him to interview with me. We have talked about the labor commissioner, Mr. Mark Costello, and the fact that he is solidly in the Walker camp, along with my good friend G, who also is solidly in the Walker camp. And again, I have to say the same thing I said during the interview. I want commitment. That's what I want. I don't want a dynasty. I don't want a Clinton. I don't want a Bush. I don't. But I do want a commitment. So I'm hoping that, if Walker continues to be the front runner for me, I'm hoping that at some point in the next few weeks he actually comes out and says, yes, I want to be president. I understand, and G and I talked about it several times. It's good business sense for Walker to not declare right now, because once he declares, there are certain restrictions that automatically come into play. As long as he doesn't declare, then some of the fundraising that he's doing, actually, he can't be held to those same rules. So I understand part of the reason why maybe he's doing what he's doing, but it doesn't change the fact that I want a commitment. Now, I do want to talk about a couple other things that I noticed in the convention, and that is the fact that I got a chance to actually meet Governor Bobby Jindal. I actually got a chance to get a picture taken with him as well. Very soft-spoken man, but very amiable. And I guess, I have to admit, coming from the outside of this type of stuff, I expected them to be a lot gruffer. I really did. A lot of these folks, they're in battles every single day, ideologically, politically. So I expected them to be a lot gruffer, and they're honestly not. And, it's just like I had the chance to meet our governor here, Mary Fallon. And by all accounts, I've always been told she was a really nice person, very amiable. But from other folks that I know that dislike her policies, I actually expected a different experience when I met her. She was cordial enough to speak to me for a few minutes. Her staffer actually gave us a card so that we could at some point try to schedule an interview. Ultimately it will be up to them as to whether or not they decide to return the call when I do reach out to them, but I do plan on doing that in the next few days. But also she was very amiable, very nice. And it just, I don't know. Because, and maybe it's just the whole thing of, when you see these folks on TV all the time, they seem like they're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. Not only that, but they're always in the middle of some sort of a big emboldened battle. And then you see them away from that, and you realize that these are just people, just like you and me. And that seems to be the thing that we've forgotten. Alright, sorry for that delay there, folks. We actually lost internet connection there for just a moment. So you may be tuning back in. For those of you who were confused and maybe heard dead air for a second, we are back now. Unfortunately, I kind of lost my train of thought, so bear with me for just a moment because I was frantically trying to make sure that everything got reconnected here. Just once, I actually wish you could get what you paid for. Just saying. So anyway, what was it? Alright, let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and take another quick break. I don't usually take 2 breaks in a show, but with the internet connection issue, I've lost my train of thought, so I'm hoping if I take a break, it'll come right back. We'll be back with you here in just a couple moments.
K98talk.com, a leader in internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98talk.com. K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com.
We're gonna spread happiness. We're gonna spread freedom. Obama's gonna change it. Obama's gonna lead 'em.
So let me be clear. You didn't build that.
Everything he's done is clean as a whistle. He's never not only broken any law, he's never done anything wrong. He's the perfect father, the perfect husband, the perfect American.
Hey y'all, this is Sam Janney, or the Bunny as many of you know me by, your friendly neighborhood bad girl of conservatism. Here to talk to you about my show. I'll talk about conservative issues, my top 10 douchebags of the week, and have some pretty badass conservative guests on the show. All that, plus me, your resident bunny with a chainsaw.
Wednesday nights will never be the same. It's Unapologetically Bunny. Wednesdays.
Hey y'all, this is Sam Janney, also known as The Bunny, and you're listening to America Off the Rails.
All right, folks, we're back. We're live. We're going to go ahead and round out the show here in just a couple minutes with you. I am Rick Robinson. This is America Off the Rails, and it is Tuesday, May 26th. Again, not sure if I did this. I meant to in the beginning, and I'm not sure if I did, so I want to give a quick shout-out to my son, who has a birthday today. You know who you are. I won't mention your name on the air. I know you don't like it when I do that, but anyway. Just wanted to say happy birthday to you. Now, where was I before the internet connection got dropped? I think we were basically talking about the fact that politicians are people just like me and you, and for some reason we seem to have forgotten that. We seem to have built them into this little box where they have to be perfect, they can't make mistakes. But the simple fact of the matter is they're human, just like me and you. The problem is we don't hold them to those standards anymore. And that can be both bad and good. Just like anything else, because we expect more from them, which is a good thing because they're in positions of authority. But we also don't seem to have any understanding when they do falter. And the same goes for a lot of our public figures. Now, I'm not going to come out and say what you think I'm about to say. I just recently started understanding a lot of what's been going on with the whole 19 kids and counting situation. The only thing I'm going to say is I think that for all of you that are throwing stones, and this is all I'm going to say, because if what is true, then something needs to be done. I think by law the statute of limitations technically didn't start until he turned 18, so there may still be something that happens. But with as weird as our society has gotten on so many different levels, I want you to think about this for just a moment. And granted, this was 14, so this is different. But in this day and age, and we all did it. You can't say that you didn't. Anybody that ever played You Show Me Yours and I'll Show You Mine would be considered a labeled sex offender at this point. And you laugh, but think about the kid in kindergarten who told a girl that he liked him and then tried to kiss her on the cheek, and he was expelled for sexual harassment. Now, am I comparing apples and oranges at this point? Yes, as a matter of fact, I am. Because it's two completely different issues. At this point, these children were all, I believe, around the age of 14, including he himself. And whatever he did, he obviously knew that he shouldn't have been doing it. Now, that being said, he deserves whatever happens charges-wise, should they be able to pull anything off. They deserve for the public outcry, all of that. But I myself am not going to judge him. Because this is the thing that I, as a Christian, seem to struggle with the most often with my faith. As far as God is concerned, it doesn't matter if you steal a candy bar or you commit murder. Every single sin is weighed exactly the same. So, the reason why I can say, no, I'm not defending Josh Duggar, but I'm also not going to stand in judgment of him, is because I have done things that in the eyes of my particular belief system and in the eyes of my God have been just as bad. Now, we rationalize the things that we do when they're wrong and say, well, it's a small thing. It doesn't matter. But it does matter. So for all of you that are standing in judgment today and wishing for Josh Duggar to be burned at the stake or whatever it is that you're wishing to happen to him, I only ask that you reserve that judgment because it's not your place. You can call for justice. You can say that he needs to be prosecuted. You can say that the families of anybody that was impacted by him deserve some form of restitution. But don't stand in judgment of him, because you never know why somebody does some of the things that they do. And isn't that what we always tell everybody, is we want to be able to look at everybody and have a common understanding and the common ability to look at one another and not always jump to the wrong conclusions. The same thing happens every day politically. We can't hold discussions anymore. I was actually contacted by a member of my staff here who was afraid that their account might be suspended because of a situation that's developed. And apparently it's been a situation that's been going on for some time. I spent probably 30 to 45 minutes last night talking to that particular person, trying to make them understand that whatever decision they make, whether it's to bow out of Twitter or to continue to try to build their following and continue to do radio and whatever they want to do, they are my friend first and foremost, and I will support them in whatever decision they make. So, and no, I'm not going to mention any names because I told everybody that I wouldn't, because if anything ever happens, we want to handle it quietly and behind the scenes, because there's no point in making a public spectacle, because at that point, then the folks that are trying to get this person suspended actually win a little bit of a battle. But I will say that one of the things that annoys me about Twitter is you can get a group of people together that all of a sudden decide they don't like something that somebody says, and they can get a group together to report them and basically judge, jury, executioner, and your account is suspended. So I'm sorry, to me, those two things kind of dovetailed together just a little bit, because again, we have lots of folks in the public eye who are prosecuting the case with Josh Duggar in the media, and now we have lots of folks that have access to social media that have decided that they want to be judge, jury, and executioner. All I can tell you is, from the little bit that I've been able to keep up with it, it appears that he might have been abused in his past as well, and unfortunately, one of the things that does tend to happen in that type of a circumstance is they do sometimes repeat what happens to them at a later time. So again, I'm not condoning it, I'm not condemning it, I'm neutral. Because the simple fact of the matter is, he's still a person. He does need to face consequences for what it is that he did, but I don't think those consequences necessarily need to be played out in the media and social media and Twitter. Alright, so that's going to do it for this particular episode of America Off the Rails. I'm your host, Rick Robinson. I'll be back with you tomorrow night, and unfortunately Bunny will not be live with us tomorrow night, but here in an hour she will be hanging out on the right angle with our good friend, aka on Twitter, Defend Wall Street, otherwise known as Bill, because Leslie is still on vacation, so we'll have guest host Bunny for the evening, and then as soon as that show ends, we will have the Game On with Janie and Stacy, filling up your airways from 9 to 10 Central, 10 to 11 Eastern, and then of course those folks will be back with us on Thursday All right, so as you can hear, I am starting to get a little scratchy, so at this point we are going to shut everything down. I do hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night. Sorry for the discombobulation and a little bit of a connection issue there in the middle, but I'm glad everything did finally come back together. You guys have a great night. I will be back with you and see you when I see you.
We will keep this promise to the American people. If you like your doctor, you will be able to keep your doctor, period. If you like your health care plan, you will be able to keep your health care plan, period.
This is the most transparent administration in history. Not even a smidgen of corruption.
Fact is, we had 4 dead Americans. What difference at this point does it make?
If you got a business, you didn't build that.